Welcome back, all of you, to NISAA Business Forum 2025, organized by Northern India Steamer Agents Association and managed by India Sea Trade. We're about to begin session 2 of today's Business Forum, NISAA Annual Business Forum 2025. And it's not all serious talks and business discussions. We also have some fun and laughter awaiting us at the end of this session. So there's a lot of things to look forward to this evening. So welcome back, everyone. Let's get started with session 2. The title of session 2 is Logistics Stakeholders Contribution for Mission Viksit Bharat 2047. To debate on this topic, I'd like to invite our esteemed panelists on stage, and we look forward to a thundering round of applause as I call out their names. First, I'd like to call on stage Mr. Shobhit Bhatnagar, Director, Dedicated Freight Corridor Corporation Limited. Mr. Bhatnagar is an IRTS officer of the 1992 batch, a consummate technocrat. He has the distinction of having served as Group General Manager, Operations and Business Development at DFCCIL from 2021 to 2023. Prior to that, he has served as GGM at Concord. Ladies and gentlemen, a loud round of applause as Mr. Bhatnagar joins us. Welcome, sir. Our next panelist on stage, Captain D. Mishra, immediate past president of NISAA. Let's welcome him on stage. Starting his career at sea in 1982, Captain Mishra sailed for over 18 years, becoming a master mariner. Transitioning ashore in 2000, he held key roles at Red Eagle Shipping, J.M. Bakshi & Co. and United Liner Shipping until retiring in 2024. Since July 2024, he has been a visiting faculty at DSEU and IIFT. Welcome, Captain, to the panel discussion. Moving on to our next panelist on stage, Mr. Prashant Seth, Joint Deputy Director General, FIEO. Mr. Prashant Seth is a postgraduate in international business and has vast expertise in international trade promotion. During his stint for the past 2 decades in the Federation, he has worked in various capacities, including trade policy, promotion, research, and logistics. He has also successfully organized various trade exhibitions and B2B delegations to more than a dozen countries. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Prashant Seth. Welcome to the panel, sir. Our next panelist on stage, Mr. Samir Bhatnagar, Partner and Global Head of Ports, KPMG. Mr. Samir Bhatnagar has more than 20 years of experience leading teams involved in studies in transport infrastructure segments and assisting PEs in transactions. He specializes in surface transport and has been with KPMG for more than 18 years. Samir is currently working on green transition in shipping, ports and inland waterways and overall supporting clients to move towards green transport. So let's welcome Mr. Samir Bhatnagar to this panel discussion. Our next guest on stage, Mr. Adhendru Jain, Vice President, Rail and Inland Terminal, DP World. Mr. Adhendru is an engaging leader with extensive experience of more than 19 years in container shipping, ports, landside logistics, and supply chain solutions. Before joining DP World, he was associated with various businesses of AP Monomers Group across functions and geographies. Mr. Adhendru Jain joining us on today's panel. Welcome, sir. Moving on to our next guest on stage, Mr. Neelkant Gummalla, Strategy Head, IMEEC Cell, RITES Limited. With 38 plus years in shipping and logistics, Mr. Neelkant excels in strategy, market expansion, and business development. As GM at HMM Shipping India, he drove record revenue growth. Now, Strategy Head at RITES Limited, IMEEC Cell, he leads the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, fostering trade, infrastructure, and global partnerships. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Mr. Neelkant Gummalla to the panel. Welcome, sir. Yes, moving on to our guest for today, who will moderate the session. We have Captain Ramgopal Ramachandran, CMD, Red Eagle Shipping Agencies Private Limited. Captain Ramgopal Ramachandran has been associated with maritime and logistics industries since 1975, having served on board merchant ships, following which he worked with an American-based shipping line. And for the last 30 years, he has been the CMD of Red Eagle Shipping Agencies. He is also past president of NISAA and vice chairman of Federation of Ship Agents Association of India. Ladies and gentlemen, Can we hear it for our moderator, Captain Ramgopal Ramachandran? Captain, the floor is all yours to moderate the session. May I also remind the audience that if you have a question, do not hesitate to walk up to the mic and ask your question to the panelist. The floor is all yours, sir.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. And unlike the earlier session, this one is interactive. So we welcome questions from the audience. Only thing is let the speaker finish talking. And so let me begin again. Once again, good evening. And first of all, I'd like to thank NISAA for this opportunity to moderate this session. The President, the Executive Committee, and the past immediate President. It's a privilege to be part of this important discussion about the critical role of logistics stakeholders in shaping Viksit Bharat 2047 as we envision India's progress and growth in the coming decades. I was not sure whether I would need to introduce the panelists, so I have prepared a whole list, so I'll skip that and go straight ahead. And as we approach 100 years of independence, the vision of a Viksit Bharat is not just about economic prosperity, but about building a sustainable, inclusive, and efficient ecosystem that can sustain the aspirations of over 1.4 billion people. In this context, the logistics sector stands as a pillar of India's growth story, from connecting cities to remote villages, ensuring seamless supply chains and facilitating trade across borders. The logistics industry is at the heart of India's economic and infrastructural transformation. The rapid development of logistics infrastructure, technological innovation in transportation, warehousing, and digital supply chains, alongside the pivotal role of policy reforms, are shaping the trajectory of India's growth. As we look towards 2047, logistics stakeholders, including service providers, businesses, policymakers, and technology innovators, have an indispensable role in ensuring that India is not only a leader in global trade, but also an example of an efficient, resilient, and sustainable supply chain ecosystem. I look forward to a stimulating discussion that will help us better understand how each stakeholder can contribute to this shared vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. So let's start the first segment of this today's session. It's for 60 minutes. It's called Looking into the Crystal Ball. Now, once the Prime Minister had announced, the Honorable Prime Minister had announced the vision or shared the vision in December 23, reams of reports and figures have emerged into the ecosystem and on the internet. The ministries have generated. But in a nutshell, what does Viksit mean? I mean, there are two aspects to it. One is, of course, what the international bodies say for a nation to be called developed, you have to achieve a certain GDP, you have to achieve certain targets, after which the World Trade Organization or the World Bank or the IMF classify a country as developed. That is a Viksit Bharat. So what are those parameters? One is, of course, your GDP has to be at least 27 million, and our target is 30 trillion. It should be 27 trillion. The target which we have set by 2047 is $30 trillion. Our merchandise exports should reach $10 trillion. We are now at around 324 billion only. And the per capita income, which currently stands at 2,450, should reach $18,000 by 2047. So these, and of course, I mean, whether these numbers make sense to us in the logistics industry, these are indicators which will just tell us I mean, we don't need to get lost or, question these numbers. It is just an indicator to tell you how the country is progressing, and let's not get too involved with the number crunching at the moment. And one factor which is of real interest is the Human Development Index, which gives you the, it is an where you include every person's, the life expectancy at birth, or the average life expectancy at birth. Currently, it is around 67 years in India. That is, any child, the average life individual can expect to live in India is 67 years now. And that should go into the high 70s or 80s by 2047, which means that the government has to invest into health. Your health infrastructure of the masses have to go up. So the Human Development Index, which is again another statistical tool of health, life expectancy, schooling, education, and the standard of living, has to reach greater than 0.8 for us to be called a Viksit Bharat. So now there are two approaches to this. One is you approach it from the perspective of a glass half full or a glass half empty. I think the more positive approach is to view this whole next 25 years from a perspective of a glass half empty and continue working towards meeting those visionary goals. So with that, I would like to ask the first question to Mr. Prashant Seth, who of course is with FIEO, and they've got a big responsibility of achieving this $10 trillion by 2047, and 60% is coming from services, and I understand FIEO also is responsible for the services exports or representing the service exporters from India in addition to merchant exporters. So what in your thought, Mr. Prashant, is, first of all, are we progressing towards that nearby goal of 2030 and beyond that to 2047, keeping in mind the geopolitical situation, the uncertainties of the global market? We would like to hear from you.
Thank you, Captain. First of all, thanks NISAA for inviting us here. Let me inform that everyone from here is from the service provider segment. And in fact, we represent the user segment of that, representing the Federation of Indian Export Organizations. Captain, you were talking about a lot of index and other parts for the GDP. I think on a lighter note, the happiness index would be the best way to achieve that developed nation once we achieve that happiness index. Now, coming to your point regarding the logistics as well as how we are progressing towards the 1 trillion target of 2030 that we are envisaged by the government for the merchandise exports itself. I think first of all, logistics has been a center stage for the last couple of years among all stakeholders, including the government. We have seen logistics policy, we have seen ULIP coming, we have also seen the e-logs coming, and a lot of sensitization is being done. In fact, the customs, we feel, is a very important player in terms of easing out the whole process. So they have also introduced a lot of measures to facilitate the, I can say, logistics also, because if we are sending, our exporters are able to send their cargo directly to the port under the DPE, then definitely it is an ease of logistics and cost saving for us. Private players equally have contributed well, and in terms of digitization, investment, port infrastructure and other parts, in terms of new technology, digital adoption. Digital, we have seen a lot of developments which we really welcome in terms of WMS, route planning, route optimization, and in fact we have some players in the field who are providing the whole solution digitally under one roof. So overall, everybody is trying to contribute and that is definitely good for the country as a whole. But if we talk about our merchandise exports, how it is progressing and where we see it going down the line. So currently, it is $437 billion that we are doing right now. And if we have to achieve 1 trillion by 2030, then it means a CAGR of roughly 15% annually that will require for the next 5 years. So that's definitely, that's a little ambitious and challenging, and targets should be challenging and ambitious. But if we look at the past trends of the last 5 years, then it was 10% CAGR. So definitely there are challenges. There could be certain disruptions which are happening globally. We are seeing global supply shocks and other kind of turbulence happening globally now with the Trump administration coming and trying to impose some tariffs also. So definitely a concern is there, but in the long run we see the growth story intact. But definitely in our view, what we see that there are a couple of things that we need to look at. First of all, we need to change the profile of the Indian exports because it is primarily of low processing products, and we need to move into the high value added segment. That is number one. Because if we look at the 400 tariff lines that contribute roughly about 75% of our exports. And we also need to diversify the destinations because depending on a particular geography could be challenging sometimes when we have turbulence like disruptions in the shocks that we have seen in the container movement and other parts of it. So definitely we need to diversify that basket also. And another thing which we find is very important is once we try to figure out and promote exports, then export from landlocked states should grow. Landlord states definitely needs a lot of facilitation, and with the logistics players, Federation would be keen to work on them, along with them to provide and reach out to them to have better solutions. Because right now the top 4 states which are contributing roughly around 60-65% of our exports are all the coastal states of Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So, and the next landlocked states, which is the 5th rank, is UP itself. So this is one area that is very important that we see. And alongside the sea movement, we also feel that attention should be given to the air side with the kind of boom and expectations we are expecting the e-commerce business. And also our electronics exports are also growing. That also requires the air movement and smartphones and other parts. So definitely the air side is also important. One thing which is very positive that we take for taking this in line with this target is one is the PLI scheme launched by the government to boost the manufacturing, and we expect that the part of the manufacturing will also be diverted to the exports. Another which is very, very promising for us was the recent FM speech in the budget where she has recognized exports as the 4th engine of growth. And FM has also announced setting up an export promotion mission to facilitate the export sector. So this is definitely gives us a ray of hope, the kind of importance which the government is attaching to the exports. So overall, we are very much intact. And definitely in the long run, we will achieve those targets. Because if we look at the current growth rates, definitely we will achieve with the 9%, 700 billion that we will anyways achieve. So keeping a target of 1 trillion, that's definitely achievable with a consolidated approach, conducive policy and suitable ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seth. So FIEO tells us the target is achievable. So what does that translate into us as logistics players for volume? So, well, the Ministry of Shipping's projections for 2047 is 218 million TEUs. In the Amrit Kal Vision 2047 document, they've given a range. This is all India figures, 175 to 218 million TEUs container throughput from India. Not only exports, it's the total in and out. Which is again, if you, here I'd like to request Samir. Samir is a number cruncher, and I worked with him in the past, many years ago, on an international project, so I know his way of working. So I'm going to ask Samir, you know, these numbers, if you do your typical linear predictions, you go into percentages which go into the 100s and 1000s, so which sort of is mind-boggling. Whereas typically you will get an exponential growth as we are going towards, which might not be, which won't be a linear sort of growth. So what is the volume you think are existing infrastructure to the ports? I'm just talking about the gateway ports. We have Shobhit who will talk about the freight corridors. Are the ports currently geared up to handle this growth, and what are the major ports which are going to come up in the next 20 years or 25 years?
Thank you, Captain Raman. Thank you for the fond days that we had in Sri Lanka, actually. And that's where I learned a lot about container shipping. Not in India, I learned about container shipping in Sri Lanka, not in India. So I think it's clearly understood, including in the Maritime Amrit Kal vision document, that the port capacity would be inadequate for the future requirements. I think operating efficiency-wise, the terminals per se, the seaside terminals, have been operating fairly efficiently. But I think in pure physical capacity, they will need significant additions. And how the trajectory will grow will evolve based on consumer expenditure, social patterns, technology patterns also. But broadly speaking, there is a significant need for gateway terminals in India because of the large consuming population. And once India's income goes 10 times to around $18,000, as you're saying, it will drive a lot more consumption propensity for various kind of goods and services. That's why if you see at least two large projects which are already being contemplated is the Vadhavan project, which is to be designed for 23 million TEUs, and the other one which the government is actively pursuing is the Galathea Bay project as well. Of course, the nature of Vadhavan will be more gateway because it's connected to the hinterland. Galathea being in the Andaman Nicobar Islands largely would be transshipment looking at its location. And hence, but even these two would probably be inadequate and you'd need to expand significantly, and not just in the major port, but in the non-major port sector as well. So both gateway as well as significant transshipment business is what India will also aim for, and it aims to become a maritime superpower as well in the Indian Ocean region as well.
Okay, thanks, Samir. So what you're saying is the increase over the next 20 years, the volume increase which we expect to see, the growth in business will get sort of handled by without too much of a problem as long as all the projected infrastructure comes into place, right?
Yes. So one more thing is that it's with ports. So there is transshipment and then there is of course gateway cargo. Transshipment will largely depend on marine side infrastructure and on the terminal's own efficiencies. But for gateway, a very critical part is evacuation efficiency. So if you are saying that it's only, and that's where the Sagarmala program comes in, which looks at an integrated approach. If it's only to look at marine side port and development, it will not suffice. And just creating marine side infrastructure will not suffice. And hence evacuation is a critical element which needs to be enhanced to ensure it such a large volume of containers and other bulk cargo is evacuated efficiently. And that requires the shipping ministry to work with other agencies as well, and their plans need to be aligned with it, such as the freight corridors, the dedicated freight corridors, etc. So yes, it is not a simple, straightforward thing that just the port infrastructure needs to expand. The marine side infrastructure, as you talk about larger vessels, and especially talk about green vessels, which have different bunkering and other kind of requirements, including port reception facilities, also needs to take into account the next generation of large mother vessels. And second large infrastructure plan needs to come in is on the evacuation.
Okay, thank you, Samir. So that takes care of the gateway port. So now how do we get cargo from the hinterland, since this meeting is primarily of NISAA, where we are more concerned with the hinterland operations. We come to Mr. Shobhit Bhatnagar. Just before the session, I was telling him how we have been talking about the dedicated freight corridor since 2006. You know, I remember in a couple of our own forums, we've discussed this. Finally, it's coming to, I think, 100% implementation by 20. So, what has been the learning from dedicated freight? You know, the whole mega, it was one of the largest mega projects handled by the government, and I think it's been a big learning. Let's look at the positive side of it instead of talking about the delays, that of course, but we've learned a lot from it. And how going forward towards 2047, and I heard that the government is planning many more freight corridors. How is all this being handled or managed?
First of all, sir, I would like to thank NISAA for making me a part of this August gathering. Now, I would like to say that yes, there are a lot of positive learnings from the implementation of these projects, and these are now well documented within the organization. Some of those which I can share is that the managing the cash flow for the contractors. Even the large companies went into these kind of problems. So once those were sorted out, then the project implementation improved. The other thing is that yes, now the heavy machinery and all those companies have become equipped to lay tracks at that kind of rate, which was needed, these were not there earlier. So now the necessary machinery, the things have now come into the country. So with these two implemented, now we have submitted DPRs for the next 3 DFCs. One is the East Coast, the other is North-South, and the East-West. All the 3 DPRs have been submitted to Railway Board, and if they get approved, then definitely we are going to see 3 more DFCs. But the present ones, yes, only the Eastern DFC is fully commissioned, 1337 kilometers, going from Javapel to Sonnagar. And I would say we are already utilizing about 70% of the capacity. So the movement of the coal and the iron and steel between the East and Punjab, Haryana region. But for the container part of the traffic, it's the Western DFC. So the height which is cleared for movement is 7.1 meters in comparison to 4.9 meters on the Indian Railways. So here the double stack, it is planned for double stack, and the capacity planned is 120 trains each way. And each of these trains can be a long haul. So double stack long haul, 120 each way. That's the capacity which we have on DFC. At present, we are utilizing about 30% to 40% of it. So even if we get all these ports, they are planned to be connected, including the Vadaman port. So I think we would be able to carry the volumes which are required to be carried. So I think that way the Western DFC is well laid out and we are prepared for it, that kind of volumes of traffic. But now, having said that, I would say that yes, there are some issues which we have faced. It's the end mile connectivity. The DFC stations, they are located in the interiors. They are not closer to the cities. They have been built about 15-20 kilometers away from the city. So what we face is the accessibility to the highways. The road access or the 5-meter kind of roads which are required for the heavily loaded trucks to move from these stations. What we have at present is the village roads. Now there, if the loaded trucks move, the villages start protesting. These are all small roads which are meant for village connectivity, Pradhan Mantri scheme or something. But then what we need is a good highway connectivity to these DFC stations and the terminals. Apart from that, another thing which we have done is coming up with the low-cost terminals. Now, normally when we talk about MMLPs, we are talking of investment upward of 200 crores or so. But what we are now doing on DFC is we are bringing out RFPs under the Gati Shakti Cargo Terminal Policy, Schedule 2. So in that, we are offering just one line of the station, the end side, and about 30 meters along wharf along with it. So that way, this requires an investment of about 9 to 10 crores, sometimes 15 to 20 crores. So you can start a terminal with an investment of just about 20 crores. So this is the low-cost terminals, as we say. That is what we are bringing out. So they have 3 have already been commissioned, 2 more are in the pipeline within this year, and we have come out with about 12 RFPs this year. So that way we have offered all the 115 stations of DFC. So there is an opportunity for creating all these low-cost terminals. So I think that's where the different commodities can be handled. Even the MSMEs can think of owning a terminal because it doesn't require that kind of heavy investment. So this is, I think, this is what DFCs would entail. We would be able to carry the volumes which are required, especially on the container side, as well as we are now giving an opportunity to create all these low-cost terminals.
So great. So the dedicated freight corridors is geared up to handle the explosive growth which we can expect till 27. So now we come to the train operators, to Mr. Adhendru Jain. So, I mean, it's been now almost 19 years. I mean, the problem when you get a moderator who's been associated with the industry, we keep going back into history. So 19 years since these licenses were issued to 15 operators. Now, how many operators are left, apart from Concor being the major player in terms of inland? And is there enough capacity to handle this kind of explosive growth in terms of modernization of the, I mean, they've designed the new dedicated freight to carry axle loads which are humongous. Are the existing stock able to take that kind of load, or do we need high-speed stock? Is there investment required? Are you geared up for the future? This is from, I presume, the private train operators.
Thanks, and first of all, thanks to NISAA to give me this opportunity. Now, what you mentioned about is that do we have enough capacity in terms of connecting the hinterlands to the port? I would say that from a capacity point of view, there is enough capacity available, both in terms of the rolling stocks, which is the trains and containers, not limited only to EXIM, but as well in the domestic and the coastal. So from that perspective, I think the capacity has been there. And what we are also visualizing is that the capacity has not to be only about the rolling stock. Because when we are in the supply chain, unless the complete supply chain is geared up to take the, peak and the speed at the same time, if part of the capacity is changed, it's not going to solve the problem. So what as CTOs and ICD operators we have been investing into also is that how do we also ensure that our terminals are geared up with latest container handling and cargo handling technology and equipments that they can give a seamless turnaround to the rakes, so that as soon as it gets out onto the tracks, most times on IR, but as soon as they go on then to DFCs, they are able to take the full speed, get to the port. Not only that, also have a very well coordinated effort with the terminals by giving them the visibility that when these rakes are arriving, they are able to turn it around and turn it around fast. So I would say that from a capacity point of view, there is enough and more. I think what we all need to work as stakeholders is how do we optimize this capacity? And to do that, it would not only be the CTOs by providing the rolling stocks in case of EXIM, but also the containers in domestic is that how do ports and terminals partner that when these rakes arrive at full speed, but if for one reason or something else, they have to wait at the terminal or the port, the objective of giving that reliability to customer is gone. Similarly, when we are working at the first mile, now I can have a fastest train available, but if I am not able to give the end user the right first mile connectivity so that when it comes, we will not be able to optimize the turnaround. If, let's say, a CTU has got the rake at the ICD, but they are not able to aggregate the demand due to first mile connectivity and it takes time, then that capacity which is available is again not being utilized fully. So my view here would be that from an CTU perspective, I think enough investments have been done and there is a good amount of capacity. I would say maybe 3-4 years back, just during the COVID time, there was a bit of disruption in the capacity, but that was more to do with the one-way empty, one-way laden, and also with the availability of spare parts to get the new wagons and rakes coming in. But that being the past, I think I'm confident that between all the CTOs, and I'm also confident with the stakeholders, if we all partner together, then we have the right capacities available, and what we have, we should be able to optimize it well.
So you're saying we are fully equipped till 2047 in terms of the capacity and the increase, the normal replacement of capex and which takes place. That is
Also, like, if you look at the change, right, today India is gearing up also not only a service provider, but with Atmanirbhar Bharat, a lot of interventions have been done. That previously a lot of wait period used to be on the global players to give the parts and assemblies and all of that to come in for the rakes to run, or for rakes to be manufactured. So I think from that perspective as well,
we are okay.
We are quite okay.
Okay.
And the lead times are quite sharpened now. So I don't see that.
So the main concern you have is the interchange points where the turnaround of the rakes, when an export going from the ICD to the port, either Mundra, JNPT, is not being turned around by the terminal, offloading it and returning it back.
See, I would say that it's not limited only to the, I would say at every multimodal point or an intermodal point or an exchange point, we have to ensure that we meet the speed. It's a relay race. One runs fast, one runs slow. The outcome is not going to meet the full expectation. So, like at the terminal, we want that the rakes arrive. They should be able to turn around fast. Similarly, at the ICDs, CTOs have invested to see that the first mile is available in a way that they are able to aggregate demand as fast as possible, so that when rake arrives, there is enough load available for it to go fast back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Captain Ram, I just want to add on to what Adhendru said. So I think
please.
how we see transportation is not a production business, it's a transit business. So with the same physical infrastructure, the faster you can go through, it actually allows you to throughput much more with the same physical infrastructure. And I think when you earlier spoke about the capacity creation, so one is pure physical capacity which has to be created. But I think if we eliminate bottlenecks and we make the whole system, whether it's a single mode dedicated end-to-end system, let's say like a pipeline, or whether you make a multimodal system with multiple handling, as long as the end-to-end transit system is seen as a faster throughput, which comes from efficiency, technology, optimization, the same physical set of assets can actually handle much more through it.
Okay.
So that's also important, and probably in India may want to look at a trajectory where we don't just create physical assets by pouring more concrete, steel and creating everything large, but with smaller facilities but faster throughput, you can actually handle things much better. So, and if we focus on some of those aspects of it, which is around technology, processes, etc., you may avoid investment in heavy capital, which is concrete and heavy assets, etc., and invest more in the soft infrastructure, which is replicable, scalable, and more easy to kind of invest and recover the investments on.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Samir. So now coming to Neelkant. Mr. Gummalla, you are handling a project which is absolutely new to a lot of us. And why IMEEC? And of course, we've understood the press reports, etc. But what are the kind of project timelines we are looking at? And if you compare the north-south corridor, which that proposed train from Russia to India, which was announced in 2000, it's almost like 25 years. That's also gone through. So, can you share some insight into the IMEEC?
Thank you, Captain Ram. And first and foremost, to NISAA, it's coming home. I belonged here, and I still feel I belong here. Anyway, the IMEEC corridor is an ambitious project envisaged by the Government of India. It's basically a vision document of the Bharat Kal Amrit Kal mission led by the Prime Minister. What it aims to do is, besides the typical providing of a new trade route, etc., which is probably going to gain, give us a lot of access, the more important thing is that it is aiming for something which is going to be of dynamic changes that will take place as far as trade is concerned from India and abroad, right into the European Union. The IMEEC corridor is basically, if I may put it in a very simplified manner, is going to be something like akin to the way a green corridor runs. It just goods move from one country to the other, the cross borders, without any of those stringent processes that needs to be followed as of today. It's going to move on the basis of certain pre-documentations that would need to be done and simplification of the entire process so that there is a seamless movement of goods right across. So all those who are going to avail the IMEEC corridor, the IMEEC corridor starts from India. At the moment, we have identified, to begin with, 2 ports in India and 2 ports in the UAE as a first phase. So it's actually going to run otherwise between India to UAE by sea. Then it'll be an entire rail network, which will be going right from UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and touching the shores of Israel onto the port of Haifa. And then again, it goes by sea into the European continent. So in its most realistic terms, the IMEEC corridor is an out-and-out classic example of the multimodal transport system. What it does is that at the moment, the government of India is pushing for the first phase, which is basically testing the waters between India and UAE to see how things are going to move. And that's the first phase that we are all working on. Basically, we are going to be, as I said, we've identified 2 ports in India, Jain and Kandla, and 2 ports in the UAE. There is some debate going on there because one of the ports happens to be Fujairah, the other is Abu Dhabi, and probably we'll add up a bit more, but on paper at the moment, that's how it is. But be that as it may. So you will be having movement of goods and having an access right across for whosoever is participating in that corridor or the trade lane as it comes on, for all the ports that come along that corridor. The important thing, however, is the aim is to not only enhance the ease of doing the business, but also the speed of doing the business, which will obviously mean that the attempt is to bring down the cost of logistics. So that's the main principle behind it. The wherewithals that are required for this corridor are obviously enormous. Besides the fact that the infrastructure development that needs to be done, the rail connectivity right across, all these are now work in progress. And let me assure you one thing. Being involved in this for the last couple of months, the speed at which the governments are working on this is amazing. In fact, we had the launch of the IMEEC corridor in the month of September last year. It was launched by the Crown Prince of the UAE. And just the other day, in fact, to be precise, just yesterday, the Minister of Port, Shipping and Waterways in Mumbai had unveiled the logo for the digitalized platform, that interface that we'll be working on. In fact, that's exactly the project which RITES is very much involved with, which I am associated. It is called Maitri. Now, for some of you or any of you who have not yet heard about Maitri, it's basically an acronym for the Master Application for International Trade and Regulatory Interface. Typically what's happening now is, I'll try and be brief because otherwise it'll just go on. Typically what's happening now is that, we have a whole lot of documentations on different portals, repetitive filing of same data here, there, and nothing is getting captured by one and the other. It's all separately being done. As somebody put it very succinctly, is that it's like all these portals are like, ideas of excellence, but they work in a gated community. They're just keeping to themselves and not sharing the information anywhere. And therefore, the advantages that one provides to the other, or the complementing nature of all these portals, are perhaps missed completely. What Maitri is attempting to do is basically it's an interface, it's a kind of a platform for all these portals, where we will be taking the information out from these various platforms and giving and transmitting them to the various other platforms at the other end. So the platforms in India, the portals in India will sort of get plugged on to this Maitri platform. The data and information will be transmitted across to, let's say, the portals in the UAE, and that information is moving almost on a real-time basis. So, for example, let's say a vessel is, calling into the port of Nhava Sheva. It's a new vessel, or, after the 6 months, the registration, etc. So you'll have to submit a document, what's basically in the port called the West Pro, Now, the agent in India is filing all those details on that vessel in the port of Nhava Sheva. And then, when that same vessel is going across, let's say, to Jebel Ali, you're doing that work all over again by the agent there. In a very simplistic manner, what I'm trying to explain to you is that the information will be captured already there. So it is there right away. So there's going to be no such things as repetition. There's going to be no such things as delayed information or information being provided late, and the consequential challenges for berthings, etc. These are all going to hopefully get eliminated. At least that's the kind of, wish list that the project aims to achieve. In the sense that will help not only to speed up the entire operations, it'll not only avoid all kinds of duplication of messaging, it'll give people an access on a real-time basis to get information as they wish to. I mean, simple things like, let's say, an exporter, he sends his goods, he's dependent on probably his CHA or his, the transporter, and who knows whether the cargo has actually come into the port or not yet come into the port. If he calls the CHA or the transporter, he might either give him a cock and bull story, or he might, whatever it may be, and he's sort of dependent on it. Going forward, he'll probably get this on real-time basis. It's there, he knows it is there. It's not there, he knows it's not there. He need not even probably call the shipping line or anybody for that matter. So it is not only going to ease the responsibilities of the lines, but it will also be an authentic source of information for the customers. So going forward, that's definitely going to help the trade in a very big way. Of course, it's an ambitious task, and the challenges are quite a bit. But let me assure you that the direction and the objective and the purpose with which the government is working on this is in fact heartening to see, and there are ideas galore. If things go right, we will be ready with the first phase of operation of Maitri in the course of the next 6-7 months' time. I know that will not change things at all. Things will continue to work the way they are, but the system will be working parallelly as testing how things are happening across, so that when the phase 2 begins, that's when the actual game begins, because that's when the main corridor will open up, that is beyond UAE into Israel. So I would say that sit back, there are things which are happening, very exciting, and let me tell you, shipping will be a thing of the past, the way we are doing it now. It's in for some big surprises, but very good ones.
Thank you, Neelkant. Thank you so much. So, you still not given us a timeline.
I don't want to do the same mistake. I don't want to commit the same mistake as DFC.
Okay.
Otherwise, just like Ms. Shobhit Bhatnagar is coming every time and giving us one deadline, I'll also probably be called every time and pulled up for the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
But anyway, it's work in progress. It's too early, to be very
Okay,
honest.
thank you. So coming now, you've heard Captain Mishra, you've heard starting from Adhendru, you heard the train operators, you heard Mr. Prashant say it. All this requires a skilled labor force. You know, the other day someone was saying if I open a facility in a town, in a B category city, or they don't get the labor, they have to move labor from the most skilled labor from Delhi or, you know, one of the more developed countries, I mean cities, to these lesser developed. How do we envisage skilling to be done, which is a big priority for the government, and what can the industry do to help in this bridging the gap between the employability and, you know, academia sort of, and the industry saying you are not producing enough people, what I need, to the universities and the colleges?
Thank you, Captain Ram. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And before I begin, thanks, dear Sasi Bhai and the entire team of NISAA for having me here. One thing I am happy about that with this invitation, I feel I'm still relevant in the trade. The trade has not written me off. Thank you for that. Now coming to this, of course, the sustainability at sea and green shipping, of course, they are pretty relevant subjects and they are the need of the hour. But we are talking about stakeholders' contribution for Viksit Bharat 2047. I have spent about 42 to 43 years in the shipping and logistics domain. But today I'm going to be talking about something skilling, where I have only spent about 8 months. So, but I'll try and do my best. The thing is, yes, everybody has said everything. Aakhri mein main hi bolunga. That skilling is equally important. Why? Because it's not only the infrastructure, not only the technology introduction into the logistics sector, not manufacturing. If you are talking about make in India and make for the world, besides these three things, skilling is equally important. I think it's one of the critical factors that everybody has to understand. In the first session, it was Commodore Lahiri was talking about global warming, and he said that how the earth, there is danger looming, there is a sword hanging, and we can't escape out of that. Something has to be done. Similarly, skilling, I would compare it with that. How long can we delay it? How long can we not prioritize this particular aspect? So important. So it is better that the earlier that we realize this, that it is equally important, we are going to head for trouble. And it is simply because the way that we are seeing this growth happening in the logistics, e-commerce, and the quick commerce segments. India is definitely marching towards that, achieving that Viksit Bharat by 2047. Yes, India is the fastest moving economy with the predictions are 6.4% for the current fiscal, and we have seen this. It has been sustainable development and the growth that we have seen in the last few years that has been phenomenal, and it will continue. Now in the logistics sector, if I say that we stand at 317 billions today, and it is going to grow at a 9% growth year on year, and I think we should be there at 500 billion by about 2030. If we talk about the e-commerce sector, e-commerce has gained a lot of popularity, and it is not only in the urban centers, we see in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, as well as in the small towns, we see e-commerce booming. It is only because of the internet and the smartphone penetration that we see. E-commerce is growing today, it's at 117 billion, which is expected to grow at a rate of something like 21% and reach something like 324 billion maybe in the next 5 years. quick commerce, it is growing again. It is anticipated that it is going to grow at a rate of something like 75 to 100%. And it is going to capture that $250 billion grocery market. It is going to capture a substantial portion of it by the end of this year. And that will happen in the top 40 to 50 cities on a pan-India basis. So this is the kind of growth that we expect. So definitely we will require skilled manpower to handle this. And for achieving this Viksit Bharat by 2047, there are a few things which the government aspires to, aims for. That is definitely India is going to be the third largest economy by 2030. It may happen a couple of years early. We are expecting $2 trillion exports, 1 trillion merchandise, 1 trillion of services exports by 2030. Most important, India is going to aims to at least to aspires to be on the top 25 countries around the world as far as the logistics performance index is concerned. We have improved our our ranking from 54 to 38 as far as 2023. And if we are having a survey this year, I think our ranking is going to improve. And India wants to be in the top 25 by 2030. That is, last but not the least, the logistics cost has to come down to the single digit of 8 to 9%, what you've been seeing. And somebody in the first session was talking about I think Murli was talking about the National Rail Plan. National Rail Plan, Railways is ambitious. It's a very ambitious project of bringing increasing the model share of railways freight movement from the current 27% to about 40 to 45% by 2030. So to achieve all these things, there are many very strong initiative taken by the government in the logistics sector. I would say there is this national logistics policy which was introduced in 2022. We saw the Gati Shakti National Plan, which was introduced in 2021 for multimodal transport, integration of the different modes of transportation. We saw Digital India policy, which has really helped the e-commerce sector because of thanks to EPI for the faster and quick transition of funds. Then we have, of course, the Bharatmala, Sagarmala, MMLP, DFC, which is going to definitely reduce the transit time and ultimately reducing the cost. We are seeing the air cargo sector also would be growing at a rate of about 12 to 14%. We know the infrastructure growth that is happening in the air sector. The Jewar Airport in the Greater Noida, I think it is the first phase of operation, I think commercial operation would start by the end of this year. The Navi Mumbai Airport, I read somewhere, I think it is expected to be commercially operative by the 15th of May. So there are a lot of things happening. And ultimately we are seeing the FDI is flowing in. At least this year we saw something like $42 billion flowing in the first 6 months of the current fiscal, and which is happening at a rate of about 26%. Of course, the landmark of FDI is that we crossed that $1 trillion mark this financial year since April 2000. So all these things are happening. We need skilled workforce to actually to handle such kind of infrastructure development and the technological introduction that is we see happening in a big way in the logistics sector. There are a lot of expectation from the skilled workforce, especially because of the e-commerce, manufacturing and the retail marketing. Definitely the complex, the customs, transportation and the environmental regulations that we see which are coming in, it is a skilled individual will be able to probably understand it better and work towards that, how to solve it. We are looking at a lot of industry related services such as the movement and storage of perishables and HAS and ODCs and things like that, probably a skilled individual will able to handle those things much better. They can handle a crisis situation much better. What we saw during the COVID-19, of course, we don't want to have another COVID, but in any crisis, they are the best people to handle the logistics sector. And inefficiencies in the center, they are the ones who are going to find out those inefficiency in the processes and take care of that and take corrective measures timely. And there are various other things like a skilled workforce. Obviously, we have a very demanding customers these days. So for that, end of the day, we find a happy customer if we have the skilled manpower with us. And ultimately, employability, employment generation increases, and with employment generation, economy, there is economic growth. Now, I'll just touch upon the few initiatives, the educational training programs that is being conducted by the government and a few corporates as well. In the government sector, we see the National Skill Development Corporation and the other government bodies taking a lot of initiative and training individuals in different sectors. And we have the National Skill Council, who are responsible for training individuals in the logistics sector. We have the Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University, where not only skilling, a lot of scope is, the opportunity is given for development of entrepreneurship at a very young age, because these are those kids who are passed out from their their board exam, the 10+2 board exam they have cleared, and they've come into the university to pursue their graduation course in logistics. So from that age, this kind of a culture is being driven to, to finally, if anybody is interested, they can be an entrepreneur in the coming years. And besides this, we have this, and DSU has, I'll say, they have got something like 20+ campuses all over Delhi. There are diploma courses, there are graduation courses, there are post-graduation courses. Last year, MBA programs was also introduced into the university. And we have CILT, we have Indian Institute of Logistics. They are the one who are conducting online programs for people who are already in the trade and even at the entry level. And these programs are being conducted over the weekends, so the work doesn't suffer. So many things are happening. We have the centrally funded maritime universities like having campuses in Chennai, Vizag, Calcutta, Kochi, Mumbai. We have the Gati Shakti University in Baroda. We have the Gujarat Maritime University in Gandhinagar. So, and besides all these things, as I said, there are a lot of corporates also are coming into the logistics, into this training domain. And so things are happening, but we still have a long way to go because what we have, the skilled manpower, and what is required. There is a substantial gap between that. So a lot of more action needs to be taken. And I would say that this is, I think we have to change our mindset now and see to it that this is something extremely critical for our sector. We cannot be quiet and sit tight and wait for a disaster to happen, because if we have proper training, then only we'll have a skilled workforce. And certainly, if I'll say in many of the corporates, this is my personal experience, many of the corporates you see and many of the offices, organizations, they think that they are doing some amount of training and teaching by just asking a senior to take give a program or give a training session to the staff in the office conference room. But that is not enough. that doesn't give the feel, because the staff already know the senior, how his thinking is, and how he wants to get a particular thing done. So it is always better that why can't we have, I am leaving a couple of points here, and I will leave it at that just before I end, for food of thought for just 2 points, that why can't we have, like the way we have different verticals in an organization, why can't we have a training vertical? What's wrong with having a training vertical? We earmark, we budget something for every vertical. Now it is the budget going on in every organization. Why can't we have a budget allocated for this particular thing, particular vertical, so that at least, if not more, at least 2 such training programs can be organized in a year. And not in the office conference room, certainly not. We should be looking at a different venue. And we should be, there are a lot of trade experts. We can always invite some of them, and they can throw light on something different with different case scenarios and with their own experience. I'm sure the experts in the trade, they have got some invaluable experience and knowledge on the subject. So better utilize those and take advantage of this, and every organization must do that. And it is this training and skilling should not happen only at the entry level. I am sure people who are already working in the logistics sector, they also need that kind of an education, because the amount of things that are happening in this sector in the last decade or so that we have been seeing, it is phenomenal. The amount of information is there on the net, it becomes difficult to track even for us. So there is so many things happening, and each individual in the trade should be aware of this. And let me call it, as I said, that should be a training vertical. I call this as a refresher course. So these are the 2 things I want to convey. And last but not the least, sorry sir, I'll take a minute more. My request to all the seniors, all the stalwarts in the industry, please don't waste that experience, that knowledge that you all have. Let us share it with the upcoming generation who has shown interest to come into the sector. Let's pass it on, and let us have a strong, really strong and a professional, skilled workforce who can take our industry forward in the years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Captain Mishra. That was a very emotional appeal to all the members of NISAA. And we're running short of time. We've exceeded, but if you have any questions, I've got these lights glaring, so I can't. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes, Tarun.
Tarun, hello. Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you. For Mr. Shobhit Bhatnagar, this is Tarun from the Executive Committee of NISAA. Now that DFC is almost seeing the light of the day and getting completely ready, fully operational by another year's time or so, do we still see that it is being able to take over the kind of traffic that was envisaged and the purpose for what it was initially created? And does it correlate with the aspiration of taking the share of the cargo market in India from 27% to 45%, whatever be the numbers? Do you see a role with DFC to playing that kind of a role, contributing at least? Because of course, what we understand, DFC is not present in the entire pan-India. Maybe you will need another few more DFC alignments planned within the country to undertake the major role, but then it has been the biggest significant project as far as the rail freight handling is concerned.
So definitely, sir, I would say that yes, as far as Eastern DFC is concerned, both the DFCs, the plant capacity was 120 trains each way with 4 hours maintenance blocks. So now each of these trains can be a long haul. So for the Western DFC or the container trains, I would say that the each train can carry 180 TEUs. And we can move 120 trains each way, every day. So that gives us enough capacity to handle whatever the traffic is. At present, what we are feeling is the constraint at the terminals. We are able to move the trains up to the terminal, but then it takes time for the trains to go in. So, that's where the capacity is needed, or at least we need the capacity to be augmented. Most of the major terminals. So, that's one part. Then you said about the capacity with the traffic that was envisaged. Yes, I would say on the Eastern DFC, yes. We have already switched over the entire freight traffic from the IR network to DFC. Very rarely, at the Mughal Sarai point, which we call as DDU now, there is hardly 1 or 2 trains, goods trains, which are interchanged on the IR network. Everything is moving on DFC. Similarly, on the Western DFC, we have offloaded Delhi area by almost 40 trains. Then per day. And NWR network completely now, it's only the end part, the last DFC station to the terminal, that the trains go on to the NWR network. Western Railway up to Vadodara, yes, it's completely offloaded. But Vadodara to Mumbai, the offloading is at present about 50%. Because the trains have to cross the traffic. So once Kharbav gets a new Kharbav station, that we are hoping this will get commissioned somewhere around June or so, July, before the JNPT connectivity. So once that happens, we'll offload the Vadodara-Mumbai part also of the Western Railway.
Sir, I have a difference of opinion in the way the performance metrics are being interpreted here, or being placed before us. The question is, if it has moved traffic from IR to DFC, we still consider both of them as railways mode of transport. So what we are looking at is whether it is IR or DFC. Okay, DFC is perhaps an improvised version of IR freight carriage. So then it doesn't still, show anywhere that the traffic share, which is moving through other modes of transport, maybe by road, rickshaw, or whatever be the mode, it is switching over to rail. This is what my concern is.
So that is happening.
Has that really happened the way it is supposed to have taken?
To some extent. To some extent. I would say that because earlier there were constraints. So whenever the trade needed something like cement plants, which were there in the Ajmer division, now we were not able to supply them the empties, plus we were restricting loading because of the clearance issues, congestions on the NCR side. So now that is completely gone.
So the end-to-end, there are certain missing links which you would say, that there are end-to-end links which in the entire end-to-end connectivity, there are certain missing links, be it on the infrastructure side or the terminals or the junctions. So those are the missing links which need to be also patched up.
Yes.
Yes. I'll try to be the devil's advocate. Okay, it has brought about some improvement in terms of efficiency. The
transit times have improved a lot.
Yes, which used to take maybe 60 hours has gone down to 30 hours.
Yes.
Which is obviously to the benefit of the trade. But at the same time, that should have resulted in an increase in the share of the carriage by rail, which is not yet at least visible to us.
Yes. I would say that
in that respect, would that still be an encouragement, for you to plan more DFCs, maybe kind of east to South India DFC or DFC across Deccan, central India from east to west? Because these are the kind of the pilot projects which have now come to light, and now we have to look at beyond that, expanding the footprint and the network of the DFC carriage.
Yes. No, I would say that yes, the shift is happening. We have introduced something, service like trucks on train. Yes. So we are now going to get newer types of wagons. That took time. We were initially started with the BRN wagons. So they had their limited capacity. But now these special wagons are coming in, which Brathwaite has designed. So that would have very comfortable part as far as the driving for the truck drivers is concerned, while on the rake. So that way we need some special wagons that would probably enable switching over of the traffic from road to rail. And for container traffic, I would say that the newer wagons which have come, I mean the BLCS, earlier they were running at 100. Even double stack was running at 100, but now it is limited to 75. BLSS, again a new wagon which has been introduced. Now DFC has infrastructure for running trains at 100 kmph, but the wagon itself is limited to 65 kmph. So that's where the constraints are coming in. I think it's more about having wagons of appropriate design which can handle that much load at that speed. Load part, yes, 25 ton axle load, it's being done. I mean, those kind of designs have come in, but with limited speed.
Fine, sir. I suppose at the strategy level, things are being looked into, so probably we are optimistic about getting the due benefits arising out of the DFC system. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any more questions? Okay, I think everyone's, oh, yes, please.
For Neelkant, sir, regarding this IMEEC CC, we are looking at it as a very, very interesting project, and we have earlier seen the INSTC project also to the Russia through that part of the world. But that didn't mature actually because multiple countries were involved in that. And when you're talking about phase 1 with UAE, then phase 1 UAE, there's already too much of, it's a sea movement, and already too much is there. Then do we have a plan to include phase 1 at least multimodal, including Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia rail connectivity is already there till the end. So at least we will have a flavor of multimodality. If we only talk about the UAE thing, then it's nothing new because it's already there. So just want to check.
Okay. When you're right, I mean, in the sense that if you want to really test the waters as far as the multimodality is concerned, yeah, it ideally should have been there. However, what I was talking about is the Maitri phase 1, The Maitri phase 1 is, as I said, it's an interface. It's a platform which is going to exchange documents and transmit documents, and in the manner in which it is required at the other end. So, this is basically limiting itself to the fact that there is going to be seamless movement of pre-documentation that will take place at the given port of entry. Once this is done, and of course the other things of the corridor are being extended, which will happen in the next phase, you know very well that the documentation exchange will be extended into that site. So it is not phase 1 of IMEEC corridor, it is phase 1 of the Maitri.
So it's a digital interface.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, Neelkant.
I'll just make one point. There's nothing to do with training and skilling. I think I've said enough. I think we require a huge round of applause for the moderator of the session today because, just one sec, I've not finished. The reason, I'll tell you the reason. Because in 2010, this is the 15th NISAA Business Forum that you are having it today. And the first one, we had it in 2010 when Captain Ram was the president of NISAA. So from there on, it has been going on and it will continue to go. So a big round of applause for Captain Ram.
Thank you, Captain Mishra. I didn't even realize that I was a president then when we held.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. On that positive note, this panel discussion comes to an end. Let's give these panelists a loud round of applause for an engaging session today. And thanks to each and every one of you who made this a good conversation with your questions, with your inputs, a lot of debates, disagreements, and that's exactly the point of such forums. So thank you so much. And to hand over token of our gratitude to these panelists on stage, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Sridhar Subramanian, Secretary NISAA, on stage to present the mementos as a token of our appreciation, gratitude, love, respect to these gentlemen on stage. Over to you, Sridhar, sir. And to receive the memento first, I'd like to invite forward Mr. Adhendru Jain. May I request you to kindly step forward and receive the memento. And also pose for a photograph, please. I'd like to invite Mr. Prashant Seth forward to receive the memento. Thank you so much. Mr. Shobhit Bhatnagar. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Neelkant Gummalla. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Gummalla. Mr. Samir Bhatnagar. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Bhatnagar. Captain D. Mishra. And of course, let's hear a loud round of applause as Captain Ramgopal Ramachandran comes forward and receives his memento from Sridhar Subramaniam, President, Secretary, NISAA. Thank you so much, Captain Ram, for moderating the session. And may I request all the panelists to please pause for a photograph. Thank you so much. And last but not the least, I'd like to invite NISAA's Secretary, Mr. Sridhar Subramaniam, to deliver the vote of thanks for this evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished panelists, speakers, moderators, and our most valued invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to all and one. All good things have to come to an end, and here we are at the end of today's vibrant event. I have been assigned the task of giving the vote of thanks. Let me begin by wishing all of you a very fruitful and glorious financial year 25-26. I, on behalf of Northern India Steamer Agents Association and the entire shipping fraternity, thank one and all present here. It was a wonderful day indeed. We shall cherish the memory of this event for a long time to come and will help us in taking forward the cause of this industry with greater enthusiasm and fervor. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the distinguished guests present in this gathering for their support to NISAA. It is indeed a matter of pride and privilege to have you here. I thank the panelists and the speakers for the wonderful discussions that has paved way for NISAA to take forward the various issues faced by our fraternity. We thank you for being with us this evening. It's been a great pleasure. I also thank Mr. IVS Murlidhar and Captain Ramachandran for the brilliant moderation during the discussions. Recommendations of each session is well noted, and same will be taken up with the relevant ministries and the departments and endeavor to resolve the same for trade benefit. I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our sincere thanks to our esteemed sponsors for the support they have extended to us at NISAA Business Forums. We will not have been able to organize such an event without their support. I also extend my thanks to Mr. Sudhir Nambiar of India Sea Trade and his vibrant team for the perfect logistics support, guidance, enormous cooperation extended for this event. Thank you. I also extend my thanks to Eros Hotel and the event team for the perfect logistics support, guidance, and enormous cooperation for this event. Last but not the least, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all the members of NISAA for their valuable support all through these years. Well, ladies and gentlemen, an event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling many weeks ago. It required planning and a bird's eye for minute details. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues who have given full commitment beyond their comfort zones to the task of making this business forum a huge success. A big round of applause for all of them, please. With these few lines, I sign off for the day and declare the bar and dinner open. Wishing you a safe drive. Sayonara. Thank you.